Hello, everybody, and welcome to the X106 podcast. We're back for another semester. I'm Ryan Elliott, along with Evan Brown, as always. And we're back to talk a little, let's see, what do we got on schedule today? We've got the NFL, some moves happening in the NFL, early moves, and going to talk a little bit of Super Bowl, and then we'll get into college basketball. So let's get right into it and start with January moves. Don't happen very often in the NFL, but there was a huge one last night, and given our geographic area, we have to talk about it. We'll give you the details of the trade. The Kansas City Chiefs send quarterback Alex Smith to the Washington Redskins in exchange for Kendall Fuller, cornerback, and a third-round draft pick. And then the Washington Redskins promptly signed Alex Smith to a 4-year, $94 million deal with $71 million guaranteed. And that's big time. I think, honestly, a win-win for both teams. What do you think, Evan?
I'm going to say the Chiefs slightly got the better end of that. I mean, obviously, we're kind of building towards the future now. We're going to Patrick Mahomes. He's, 24, 25 years old now. We get a 23-year-old cornerback in Kendall Fuller, who was taken out of the third round. I believe he was a Hokie, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of people don't know who this Kendall Fuller guy is. You know, I'd heard his name over the course of the last year and everything, and I wanted to make sure it was who it was, and it was number 29 last year for the Washington Redskins. I found some facts on Twitter the other day that actually just blew my mind. So it's passer rating allowed for last year's cornerbacks. Trey Waynes allowed a 21.8 passer rating for opposing quarterbacks, cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings. Next best at 24.7, you guessed it, Kendall Fuller. And then there's an enormous gap between him and Marshawn Lattimore at 42.1. So he's 23 years old, and he's had tremendous growth from his rookie season in Washington. Last year had one of the best sophomore years I can remember in past years, and one of those being Marcus Peters had an outstanding sophomore year as well as his rookie year as well. And we got the third. Was it a third round pick?
Third round. Yep.
Third round pick. I mean, that's not a bad round to be picking. We need another linebacker to maybe take the reins for Derek Johnson if he has more gas in the tank. I definitely think that the Chiefs got the better edge of this, because if you look at the Washington Redskins, they signed a 34-year quarterback to 4 more years to play in Washington. I mean, sure, they wanted to maybe cut down just a little bit on the money because Kirk Cousins would have had a mega deal. But ultimately, I think the winner in this situation is either Kirk Cousins or Alex Smith. Smith got the payday, man.
And here's what I see. What I see between these two teams is the Redskins got an all-class, reliable, consistent quarterback, which is exactly what they need in that offense and exactly what Kirk Cousins was. But if you're the Redskins, you had to know Cousins was going to explore his options, and when he explored his options, you weren't going to be able to keep up with a lot of teams around the league. So Kirk Cousins is walking. I think in this situation, you have to go after a quarterback, and you're going to have to pay a big price for him.
Right.
Because in order to get a good quarterback, and so I think they got exactly what they wanted out of the deal in Alex Smith. I think that Smith has at least 2-3 more really consistent years in him for Washington, and I think that I don't think Washington just totally got scrubbed in this deal.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say that by any means, but I definitely give the edge to the hometown team.
Yeah, and then if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, you get a solid number 2 corner in Fuller. He is a guy that you're going to be able to rely on to go alongside Marcus Peters. And that was one of the positions they really needed, and that's going to be one less thing that they have to worry about come draft time and during free agency. And you also get a third-round draft pick, and the third-round draft pick is important because the third round is, rounds 1 through 4, you're looking at guys who you want to make, if not an immediate, soon, a very important impact on your roster, and you can get those guys in rounds 1 through about halfway through round 4.
I agree.
Pretty reliably.
And you might get that diamond in the rough in the 6th round, guy named Tom Brady, but that's
right. But that doesn't happen very often. Whereas you look at the first 3 rounds and you see all of these guys are guys that can make a relatively immediate and pretty integral impact on a roster. And I think that solidifies another roster spot for the Chiefs as well with that third-round pick. So I think, again, it's a win-win in terms of both teams got exactly what they were looking for out of the deal. The Chiefs probably came out on the better side of it, but you know who came out on the best side of it is Alex Smith. Because the Chiefs were not going to pay Alex Smith 4 years, $94 million. $71 million guaranteed. Yeah. It just wasn't going to happen. So really happy for Alex. I think he's going to have a great few years in Washington. He's got the ability to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC without a doubt. And it'll be interesting to see what he does. And it's going to be nice to, knowing that we traded away Alex Smith as a Chiefs fan, to not have to worry about playing Alex Smith that much.
One of the rumors that was flying around a couple days ago was that we might ship him off to Denver for Aqib Talib or something like that. That was not what I wanted.
Well, and
I'm glad they didn't come through with that.
Yeah, there was talk that the Browns were in the conversation as well. Thankfully for Alex, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So now the question becomes, where does Kirk Cousins go? There are a lot of spots. You talk about New York, you talk about Cleveland, you talk about Miami, Denver's an option.
There's about 5 spots you can go. Arizona.
Really. Arizona's another.
Jaguars.
There and Jacksonville. Yeah, that's the one that I think would be the most interesting, especially with as good as Jacksonville was this season. New York, another option, and Buffalo, both in the conversation as well.
Buffalo wouldn't be too bad.
And earlier in the season there was talk of maybe Indianapolis, maybe Minnesota. Neither of those are going anywhere because of the way Case Keenum played this season. They've got 3 quarterbacks on the roster that they're going to end up having to ship one. Otherwise, they're going to pay $40 million a piece for those 3 quarterbacks. So I think Cousins ends up either. Where do you think, first of all, before I give my prediction, is the best fit for Kirk Cousins?
Personally, the two teams that stick out most to me are, first and foremost, I would love to see him go to the Jaguars. That's where I personally want him to go. I want to see how good the Jaguars can be with not that Blake Bortles unreliable. He had a great postseason, but a more reliable quarterback. I'd love to see how they were, because they were in a number of close games this season. They put up a lot of points, and with a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, I mean, you're not just going to be, ditching the ball off, to your halfback, all the time. But for me, I think the most likely place he could go is Miami. Miami has not had a reliable quarterback at all. I mean, you look at Jay Cutler, he had like Matt Moore. I don't even know who they had before that. And, you toss Kirk Cousins in there, you have a great receiver in Jarvis Landry. They've got, I believe they still have Kenny Stills. They've got weapons on this team. You look at their running backs, they've got, I think, Kenyon Drake, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, who knows? If Kirk Cousins go there, he could be that catalyst that really propels this offense to, I mean, not greatness, but they'd be, upper echelon in the league, I'd think. So I don't know, one of those 2 places I feel like would be pretty good for Kirk.
I think one of the issues you look at with Miami is that they've got a lot invested in Ryan Tannehill. They've invested a lot of money in Ryan Tannehill. They've put a lot of time into Ryan Tannehill. And, of course, the season-ending knee injury this season was the reason that they had to scrounge everything together to grab Jay Cutler and try to win some ball games as my microphone just totally runs away from me. I like the idea of Miami. I think everybody but Kirk Cousins likes the idea of Cleveland.
Yep.
But Cleveland has their pick of the litter in the draft. I mean, they're the number 1 pick. So you've got Allen, Darnold, Rosen, Mayfield, Jackson, everybody you could possibly think of sitting up there on top of the draft at quarterback. And also Saquon Barkley and Bradley Chubb at NC State. They've got the 1st and the 4th pick. So realistically, I think if you're the Cleveland Browns, you should go Barkley first.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then when 4 rolls around, you have one of those remaining 3 quarterbacks, whether it's Darnold, Rosen, or Allen, whoever's left, you have at 4.
I mean, if you're Cleveland, you got to look at in this light. In what situation have you had the number 1 draft pick and it's worked out for you? So you got to pick Saquon number one quarterback is what I'm kind of going towards here.
Well, I can't think of a draft pick that's worked out for Cleveland since Joe Thomas.
Exactly. So, like, in this situation, I'd leave it up to chance. You take Barkley first. He looks like a surefire guy,
And then whoever you have left, you take.
And just snag him up. You know, he might end up being something. You just got.
Well, I think those three names that you're talking about at the top of the draft board, Rosen, Darnold, and Allen, are all NFL caliber quarterbacks. They all have the talent to be very good in this league. But I think the place that Kirk Cousins lands is the Denver Broncos next season. I think Denver needs a quarterback. Obviously, the three that they have aren't working. I don't know if any of the three of them will still be in Denver next season. Paxton Lynch might be, but Simeon and Osweiler, I think, are gone.
Yep.
And so, the Broncos, I think, are the best fit for Kirk Cousins. The talk is the Broncos never really tend to spend big on quarterbacks they're not sure about, but what is there to not be sure about Kirk Cousins? I mean, he's shown
easily a top 7 quarterback in the last 3 years.
He's shown exactly what he can do in Washington. So I think Cousins ends up in Denver, and we wait to see where Cleveland goes. Wait to see where Cleveland goes in the draft. Buffalo, I think, might stick with Tyrod Taylor for another season because he did. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler. He played okay. The Jets are going to have to figure something out because,
who do they have?
Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh McCown, those names aren't going to fit the bill. So I think you look at the Jets, they're the number 6 overall pick, which means Mayfield could be in the discussion. I think the top 3 you're talking about are going to be gone by that point, but Mayfield can be in the discussion. Lamar Jackson could be in the discussion. Also, you look at the 3 quarterbacks that the Vikings have.
One could possibly land
there. Either Keenum, Bradford, or Bridgewater, whoever they decide to ship out. That's going to be an interesting thought, is to see who ships out of Minnesota.
I think it's either I think Bradford's a front runner now to be shipped out. I'd say Keenum is the second because he might go with Shermer.
And you talk about the amount that they have invested in Teddy Bridgewater and the ability that he has, the talent that he has. Of course, just getting that unfortunate injury that's sidelined him for so long.
Yeah, there's going to be a quarterback shuffle, if you will.
Certainly. I think Miami sticks with Tannehill. I think Jacksonville's probably going to stick with Bortles. If they don't, people are throwing Nick Foles around as a possibility because once Carson Wentz comes back, the Eagles aren't going to stick with Nick Foles. New York, I think, gives Eli Manning a 400th chance. And then Tampa Bay and Indianapolis were the other 2 that were names thrown around for Kirk Cousins that I think, I don't know that there's much merit to that, being that Tampa Bay is still all in on Jameis Winston. I think the other pieces around Winston are the issues that they need to look at. And then, Indianapolis has Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is Indianapolis's guy. They just got to put other people around him. So, all of that spawning from the Alex Smith trade, there's a lot of people talking about how that really is creating a rift throughout the NFL of who's going where, which quarterbacks are landing where. Now that Cousins is gone, who is he going to replace, and where's his replacement going to go, and where's the replacement in that city going to go, and I think
the house of cards has fallen.
I think it certainly has, or if it hasn't fallen yet, it's certainly getting close.
In January.
In January. I think we're going to have to wait a little while to figure out everything else, but certainly we do have an answer as to where Alex Smith will be right now, which is surprising because normally it doesn't happen this early.
Right.
So let's move on to the other event in the NFL this week. I don't know if you know this or not. It's Super Bowl week.
What?
Yeah. Yep. Sunday, February 4th, Super Bowl 52. The Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New England Patriots at U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. And
oh boy
indeed. That's going to be an interesting matchup because you look at this might be the most lopsided quarterback matchup I've ever seen in Super Bowl history, which is unfortunate for Nick Foles.
Yeah.
Because Nick Foles is a fantastic quarterback, but he's not Tom Brady.
Nope.
Nor is anybody.
Mm-mm.
And so I think you look at these two teams and you see, okay, how good can the Eagles' defense play? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only question you look at this. I mean, they have an offense. Their offense is going to score points. I mean, the Patriots' defense has gotten better as the season has gone on. You know, they're able to kind of figure it out and kind of limp towards the end of these games. But, yeah, that defense is a question mark. They're only a 5.5-point favorite over the Eagles at the moment, which I think it's fair. I think it'll change a bit, you know, once we get to the game.
I think it'll come back down to earth a little bit.
I think as well. But I think this game is going to go much like the Jaguars game did. I think the Eagles are going to hop up to an early lead, and Tom Brady's just going to do the classic storm back, win by 3, you know, sort of thing. And I really do believe that. I don't think it's going to be, you know, a shootout. It's not going to be a defensive matchup. You know, it's going to be early lead, tie up in the third quarter. You maybe get a touchdown, tie it back up, and they're just going to win. It's just how it has always gone in a Patriots Super Bowl. I mean, you look at last year. They're not going to top last year's comeback, but who knows?
Here's what I think in this situation. I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles, and here's why. I think if you look at, obviously, coach and quarterback, the Patriots have the clear-cut advantage.
Yes.
But not by as much as they've had in the past in the coaching department. I think Doug Peterson is absolutely one of the best coaches in the NFL, bar none.
Mm-hmm. He's really turned out great.
Right.
In the rough kind
absolutely.
of guy.
Absolutely. I don't think he's as good as Bill Belichick yet, but he certainly has an opportunity. But, so coach and quarterback, New England has a clear advantage. Everywhere else, the advantage goes to Philadelphia. In the run game, the advantage goes to Philadelphia. On the offensive line, the advantage goes to Philadelphia. And on the defense, the advantage goes to Philadelphia. So I think, and what are the two things that you need to do to beat Tom Brady are bring pressure up the middle on defense. The Philadelphia Eagles have arguably the best front four in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And run the football effectively. Keep Tom Brady off the field. That's the best defense against Tom Brady, is to make sure he hasn't touched the field. And so I think that with their advantage in the run game, Nick Foles is not going to have to do too terribly much to win this ball game. Just don't turn the ball over, exactly. And turn around and hand the ball off to J.J. and to LeGarrette Blount. And even to an extent, you know, you've got Clemens and you've got, is Barner still on the roster? He's a returner, right? Kenyon Barner?
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, he's obviously a weapon in the passing game as well. And so I think if you do those two things, if you execute and run the football, and then if you can bring pressure up the middle, because Tom Brady, he's great stepping up in the pocket, but he can't move to his left and right. If you force him to get out of the pocket,
you got to sack.
You have neutralized Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And so I think those are two of the things that New England is best at. And they were two of the things that Jacksonville was best at as well. Yeah. And Jacksonville almost got it done. But I think New England's got a better front four than Jacksonville had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you take that into consideration, I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles, because I think it comes down late in the game into that situation that you're talking about, that Brady's going to have a chance to come back. And I don't think Philadelphia gives him a chance, because I think they run the ball successfully and put up a long last drive to shut the game down.
If they don't have shoddy play calling like the Jaguars did, I'd say it's in the bag. If they do get up to that early lead, I think they're not a sure shot, but they have just about as best of a shot as you can against the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl.
I think it's because of the run game.
It comes down to the run game. It comes down to that front four. It comes down to the entire defense of the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think what it came down to for Jacksonville was that Leonard Fournette wasn't 100%.
Well, it was poor play calling as well. You know, they'd run on first down, they get 2 yards. They throw a 20-yard pass on second down. Obviously, it's either complete or it's incomplete. Right. If it's incomplete, you're in the same hole. Another 20-yard pass, and they'd have to punt. That's 13 seconds off the clock.
I think Fournette was not 100%, and they didn't have a reliable second option. Yeldon was okay, but he's not, you know, the 1-2 punch of a J.E. and LeGarrette Blount is kind of unmatched. It was unmatched certainly in the NFC, And I think you look at, and LeGarrette Blount wants to get back at the Patriots. Come on now, former team.
Chris Long.
Absolutely. And of course, neither of them left on bad terms necessarily, but anytime you play your former team, you're a little bit more excited, I think. And so I guess that's our Super Bowl picks. You're going with New England late.
Yeah.
And I'm going with Philadelphia, who are going to squander a New England chance late. The front four is going to get a pivotal sack, and then about 5-6 minutes to go, they're going to be able to run the football and run the clock out. And so it's whatever it's going to happen, it's going to be fun, as the Super Bowl always is.
Score prediction?
I'm going to say 24-20 Philadelphia.
27-23 New England. Weird scores.
Okay, so New England's going to be down 23-21. And they're going to score as time expires to win.
It's going to be crazy.
That would be nuts. That'd be absolutely nuts. I am so totally in for that. Yeah. I think 24-20, I think the Eagles are up 21-20, and they kick a field goal with like 13 seconds left, and Brady just doesn't have enough time.
Is it Elliott? Jake Elliott?
Yep.
He's had a good year. Okay.
Yeah, he's the guy that kicked the 61-yarder to beat, was it New Orleans?
Whoever it was.
I don't remember. But anyway, that's our predictions for the Super Bowl, and again, you're listening to the X106 podcast, as now it's time to move on to NCAA basketball. Let's take a look at the rankings real quick.
Oh, boy.
Where we're at in the AP and the coaches' top 25. Villanova, Virginia, Purdue, Duke, Texas, or Purdue, Duke, Michigan State. Villanova, Virginia, Purdue, Duke, Michigan State. That's your top 5 for the AP. Xavier, Kansas, Cincinnati, Arizona, Texas Tech rounds out the top 10. And other notables, some teams, Auburn, a team that you don't usually see in the top 25, sitting at 11 in the AP top 25. St. Mary's at 13, Gonzaga at 14. You move down and you see Rhode Island at 22. Those are some surprises to see in the top 25. Some teams that if you have paid attention to college basketball over the past 10 years, you wouldn't expect to look in the top 25 and see.
Yeah.
You expect to see Gonzaga, but you look at St. Mary's, you look at Auburn, and you look at Rhode Island, and those are teams that you go, really?
Yeah. I mean, Texas Tech has had some bad years in the past, too.
And Texas Tech, yeah. If you go back to the Bobby Knight era, maybe you're a little bit more inclined to see Texas Tech in the top 25, but certainly not
in recent
prior to the last couple years anyway.
Yeah.
You don't look at it and go, okay, well, yeah, I expected that. So let's take a look at the schedule for tonight and Saturday. Those are the big days of college basketball through the next week. You look at tonight, you've got Michigan State at home against Penn State. That's at 5:30. Tennessee at home against LSU. That's also at 5:30. Virginia hosts Louisville at 6 o'clock. Cincinnati hosts Houston at 6 o'clock. West Virginia heads to Hilton Coliseum to take on Iowa State at 6 o'clock as well. And Purdue hosts Maryland at 7:30. I believe there's a couple more ranked matchups. Yeah, Texas Tech hosts Texas at 8 o'clock. And Arizona is at Washington State. Those are your matchups involving ranked teams. And I think you look at this schedule on Wednesday, there's not a whole lot of fantastic games going on. I think the one you look at is West Virginia at Iowa State.
There's 3 games that kind of interest me, kind of upset potential, if you would. Those 3 games for me, they're Louisville, Virginia. Virginia's had an outstanding year. They're 20-1 and 9-0 in ACC play, and they're at home. But I don't know, something about Louisville this year. I've liked the way they played. You know, they've lost some close games. 16-5 is not a bad record. But you know, they have talent on that team. So I don't know, anything could happen. Maybe a low-scoring game, like a 59-50 or 59-59. You know, maybe last second chance. You never know. The West Virginia Iowa State game, obviously very interesting, and Texas Tech hosting Texas. Those are my 3. Big games for tonight, anyway. So Bomba for Texas.
Let's take an aside here and look at the Big 12 right now, because those are a lot of the big games you talk about in college basketball tend to happen inside the Big 12. West Virginia at Iowa State tonight. Hilton Coliseum's an almost impossible place to play college basketball. It's incredibly difficult for every team in the Big 12. That includes West Virginia. That includes Oklahoma. That includes Kansas. That includes everybody. Hilton Coliseum, there's just something about it that when the Cyclones show up at home at Hilton Coliseum, they are tough to beat. I think you look at the same concept at Texas Tech. United Supermarkets Arena has become a difficult place to play basketball. It wasn't for a very long time, but I think we've seen this season it's not going to be easy to go into Texas Tech and get a win, especially for a team like Texas, who's kind of reeling at the moment because Mo Bamba's been in some foul trouble in a few consecutive games. They've had some issues, and it's been difficult for them. But I think those are the two games that you mentioned you were looking at along with Louisville, Virginia, and I agree that those two Big 12 matchups are going to be important. You look at Saturday, and you see this is kind of a week where we see top versus bottom.
Yeah.
In a lot of the conferences, you've got Kansas at home against Oklahoma State. Duke is at St. John's. Cincinnati at Connecticut. Clemson at Wake Forest. Kentucky at Missouri. That might be an interesting matchup, however, with, as down as Missouri's been their last few games, they've still got the talent to certainly scare a Kentucky team on the road. I think you look at West Virginia's at home against Kansas State, an up-and-down team. Florida, Alabama, I think is probably your game of the week in the SEC. Alabama's been playing really well lately. They've got Missouri tonight, and then they take on Florida in Gainesville on Saturday at 3 o'clock. And so those are some of the games you're looking at on the schedule. And, again, it's kind of a top versus bottom sort of week.
Yeah, especially on Saturday. You mentioned it. I'd say Florida, Alabama, probably the best matchup. Either that or Kentucky, Missouri, you could make that argument. I agree with you. Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see Kevin Knox, play at Missouri, though, with all that went on with the rumors of him and Michael Porter maybe playing together. So, I don't know. Maybe there'll be some interesting signs from the the Mizzou fans.
I think the Antlers are going to have something to say about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That'll be fun. Yeah, that will be fun to watch Kevin Knox in an environment where a lot of people expected he would be playing, or certainly thought there was a chance he'd be playing. So, that'll be fun to take a look at anyway. So if you take a look, let's go through and give me your number one seeds right now in college basketball. If the season ended today and you had to select the NCAA tournament, who are your 4 number one seeds?
Boy, man, put me on the spot here. I got to give it to Virginia. They played lockdown basketball all year. I think by the end of the year, if KU avoids injury, I think you got to give one to Kansas. I think you got to give one to Duke. Oh gosh, I think Gonzaga might sneak up in there right now. I don't think Purdue is all that they're. I don't know. They played very well. They played very well over the season, but I don't think they're all everyone has them out to be.
Maybe they've played above their pay grade.
Well, maybe that. I just don't see Purdue doing too well in the tournament, so I just can't give them that ranking. So I'd say, what did I say? Virginia, Duke, Kansas, maybe Gonzaga sneaks up there. I'm not too confident in the Gonzaga. I might change that here in a second. But go ahead, give me your 4 and I'll
So my 4 are Nova's the number 1 overall, Virginia, Purdue, Michigan State. I think right now, if it ended today.
Duh. I forgot you said that.
But that can certainly change. I think Duke would have a conversation as well, but I left them out because I don't think that they're going to last throughout the entire season as a top 5 team. So if the season ended today, I'd go Villanova, Virginia, Purdue, Michigan State. By the end of the season, who's to say? I certainly think there are a lot of teams that have a chance. Kansas, Cincinnati, Xavier, I think all have a chance. A team like Gonzaga might have a chance to get up there. St. Mary's could have a chance to get up there as well. They're sitting at 13. They've only got 2 losses, I think. So there are a number of teams that have a chance to get up there. So give me it doesn't have to be one of your 4 number 1 seeds. Who's your favorite to win the NCAA tournament right now?
with how locked down Virginia in their defense has been, I'm stuck between either them or Duke. Duke always makes late postseason runs. They're notorious for that, if you will. But I have to give the edge to Virginia right now. I really like this team. I've watched a number of their games, and I don't see too many weak spots in their game, honestly.
I think right now I've got to give it to who I think is the best overall team in college basketball, which I think is Villanova. I think in all aspects of the game, Villanova puts it together the best of anyone in college basketball. You talk about Virginia. The problem with Virginia is they can't score. You look at Purdue, and Purdue's played great both offensively and defensively all year. But if you get Isaac Haas in foul trouble, you have a lot better chance of taking down Purdue. People look at Duke. Duke's the all-freshman team. The all-freshman team never makes it. Michigan State is they've got the star power. They've got the offense. The defense has struggled just a bit, and I just don't think they quite have what a lot of those other guys have. So I'm going to go with Villanova, who I think is the best overall team that has it put together the best right now. The only issue with Villanova is they don't really have that guy.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of by committee for them offensively. But sometimes, that's the best. The whole team has that sense of identity that, we got to work together if we want to beat these guys.
Yeah, that's certainly what happened when they won the national title 2 years ago. To Villanova, was that they did it by committee. They had, Archidiakono was one of the guys you talked
Josh
about. He was probably the heart and soul of that team, but that was a team effort to win that national title, and I think they've got a chance of it again. So let's take it back now to maybe a sleeper pick, a team that's not maybe a 1 or 2 seed that's going to make the NCAA tournament and scare a lot of people.
I'm going to stick to the Big 12, and I'm going to go Texas Tech. They're a weird team. They put up a lot of points, but they can also be very very good defensively, rather. 17-4 as it stands right now. They lost to Seton Hall. That was their first loss. They lost by 10. Their second loss, they lost to Oklahoma by 10. Good loss. They lost to Texas, though, however, which is not the best of losses, and Iowa State, and that's in that streak they lost 3 out of 4. But during that streak, they did beat number 2 West Virginia by 1. So, like I said, not necessarily a streaky team, but they do put up a lot of points, and they're very good defensively at some moments. They played number 18 Baylor and won 77-53, and then they went back that next game, beat number 10 KU at home 85-73. So that, as we were talking, if the season ended now, they'd have 3 pretty good wins and then 3 kind of bad losses. So we'll see what happens with the rest of the year. They have to go through Texas, TCU, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Oklahoma again. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. But for right now, I'd say Texas Tech for me out of the Big 12 is a pretty decent sleeper pick. There we go.
They have pretty good sneakers too.
Yeah, they do. Aren't they Nike?
I don't remember. Probably. Seems like everybody is in the Big 12 anymore. Yeah. I think I'm going to stick in the Big 12 for my sleeper pick. I look at Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's been kind of down the last few weeks. Losses to Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Alabama. They've kind of slept on the bottom feeders in the Big 12 to an extent, and a close loss to West Virginia, and that's it on the schedule. A loss to Arkansas early in the season for Oklahoma. I think they've got a difficult schedule coming up, and I think they're going to end up dropping to maybe a 5 seed, maybe a 6 seed. But with Trae Young in the lineup, Oklahoma may be the scariest 5 seed you've ever seen in your life. This is a team that they go where Trae Young takes them.
I think they're only ranked number 12 right now. Or what are they?
Yeah, they're 12.
Yeah, they're 12. Just because of that Trae Young factor. They have 5 losses at number 12. The 13 team has 2. 14 team has 4.
Yeah, the only problem is that the 13 team is St. Mary's.
Well, yeah,
who
exactly.
Doesn't get any love. But I get what you're saying. Is that these are teams that this Oklahoma team is only in there because of the name power right now of Trae Young.
Yeah.
But
he is outstanding.
Yeah, they go where Trae Young goes. If Trae Young has a bad game, Oklahoma guaranteed will not win that game, no matter what.
Absolutely not.
Because there's nobody around Trae Young. So they go where Trae Young goes. But if you get to the tournament and Trae Young's playing well, Oklahoma can beat anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody. They proved that. They beat Kansas in Norman.
That's true.
Which, given it was in Norman, but still.
It was a great game.
They downed Kansas.
During that game, they put a statistic across the bottom, and at the time, I believe they put up like 90-something points per game. That's what they were averaging, which was like number 2 or 3 in the entire Division I. And then they put up another statistic about their defense, and they were giving up like 90-plus points a game, which was like 320th out of the 331 teams or whatever. So like kind of how I was talking about Texas Tech, great offensively, sometimes they're great defensively. They need to work on that defense if they want to make a late run. Get hands in the face, everybody move, everybody talk. I mean, that'll at least put you up at least 10 spots.
Yeah. Well, I think let's look at the scores that they've given up. They gave up 89 points to Omaha, which I believe is a season high for Omaha. 83 to Arkansas, 80 to Oregon, 85 to Texas San Antonio, 83 to USC, 83 to Wichita State, 89 to TCU, 89 to Oklahoma State, 89 to West Virginia, 97 to TCU the second time they played them, 87, 83 to Kansas State and Oklahoma State, 80 to Kansas in a win, and 80 to Alabama in a loss. And, oh, by the way, last night, 96 they gave up to Baylor, or 2 nights ago. 96 they gave up to Baylor. So they're
plus, just about every time.
Yeah, it's been a rough season defensively for Oklahoma, but again, if they get to the tournament and Trae Young can play like he did against Baylor with 44 points, then they can beat anybody in the country. So they're going to be dangerous come the NCAA tournament. Anything else you'd like to add, Evan?
Man, I hope they don't play Kansas in the tournament. That'd be scary, man. He's a talent. He really is. Everybody's been talking about Trae Young and how he kind of looks like Steph Curry, with the shot. But I think he passes it tremendously better than Steph Curry ever did in college. He gets more rebounds than Steph Curry ever did. I'm pretty sure he's still shooting better, which is crazy because Steph went to Dayton. Davidson. Jesus, I always get those confused. Anyway.
They're right next to each other alphabetically.
Yeah, right. But I mean, you're playing 2 different levels. You know what I mean? Davidson, obviously they always made it to the tournament when Steph Curry was on the team, and he'd light up the scoreboard and everything like that. But you're looking at Trae Young. Trae Young's playing kind of a higher echelon of teams, in the Big 12, and I think he's doing a lot of things better than Steph Curry did in college, which is pretty scary. If you think of how well that Steph Curry improved. Once he got into the NBA, it took him a few years, but look at him now. Yeah,
the ceiling is certainly there for Trae Young, and it's a long way up there.
Almost can't see it.
They do get another chance at Kansas on the 19th of February at Allen Fieldhouse.
I'll be watching.
That's going to be the big test of all tests for Trae Young is at Allen Fieldhouse, the toughest place to play in all of college basketball.
And some Big 12 title implications as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. Oklahoma is second to Kansas in the Big 12 right now at 6-3 in the conference. Kansas sitting at 7-2. I think you look at this college basketball season as a whole. This is as wide open as I think I've seen it in the last 5-10 years.
Especially the Big 12. Well, maybe not especially, but it's kind of giving Kansas a scare. I believe it's 13 straight, which it's looked like surefire every year. But I don't know.
And I think it's as wide open as it gets. Even at the top, I think I could name off 15 or 16 teams right now that all have a relatively equally legitimate shot at the national title.
Yeah. March Madness.
It's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be insane.
It's gonna be fun. We're excited for it. We got a ways to go though. We're only about halfway through, or less than halfway through conference season. Maybe right at it, but we've still got a long way to go. Another month, basically, till we get to conference tournament time, and then another month and a half before NCAA tournament time. And so it's exciting. We're all excited here at X106 and all around campus as our own basketball teams are getting into the late stretch of the season and getting ready to try to make a playoff push. And so college basketball has certainly been an exciting season. And with that, I think we're finished here on the X106 podcast. I want to thank Evan Brown for joining me as per usual.
Always.
And we will see you next time. This has been the X106 podcast.